Greetings all, F-Man here. We've got some new cat and fodder here in Assetto Corsa. This is VRC's Formula Alpha 2024, etc., etc. I'm gonna be a little bit controversial here, but I'm also gonna be intentionally cryptic. Um, there's some stuff going on with this car, and I've got it on very good sources that there's some stuff going on with this car. And I'm not going to elaborate beyond that. Going to be like one of those circa 2016 Washington Post journalists who are like, anonymous sources say, and then never divulge their sources because they're making everything up. But I'm not making this up, but I'm neither going to divulge where I've gotten this information. Long and short, what you're seeing is actually the Red Bull RB20 with some bits and bobs added just to make it appear original. But it's the Red Bull RB20. It's the Red Bull model, and the physics are, as far as I can tell, very much contrived. Not in the sense of they're unrealistic or unexpected, but in the sense of it's not the RB20 that you're driving. We're at Vallelunga here today, Long Valley here in the wonderful country of Italy, Italia, as everybody should call it. Yeah, we're just here with Formula Alpha 2024, and we're gonna talk about, first of all, why does it disappear in this? What should we call this? The cycle view that you get when you boot up. Yeah, doesn't make sense to me. Good here, obviously, with that sweep from fore to aft. We go to the next sweep from the rear, aft to forward. That works well. You see those big tunnels there along the top side of the bodywork. Again, something that you see on the RB20. Yeah, this very much looks like the RB20. And of course I put a Red Bull skin on it because, well, it's appropriate for this Red Bull car. But when we go here, watch. Car disappears. What's up? I know that we're glitching into the pit building there, but still, the car disappears. That's not right. So, are we talking about a bug fest here? Not entirely, but we're talking about something. I'll tell you that much. Beyond that, we go to the orbit cam here, the F5 cam. That looks pretty well normal. We go to the F3 cams, track side. That's fine. Go to the F1 cams. There's a cockpit. You see the steering wheel's not in position. That's a cutesy little thing that they're doing with Lewis scripts. I don't give a crap about Lewis scripts. I'm sorry. I know RSS with their Formula 2010. They have also jumped on the Lua bandwagon. It works there because it's tastefully done and it actually adds to the substance of the car. I know I haven't talked about it on the channel yet, but this thing is so Lua dependent that if you don't have Lua, you might as well not have the car. And if you're a new user to Assetto Corsa, you're not going to understand a damn thing that this car is doing. Beyond that, let's see. So many setup options that Assetto Corsa is like trying to commit self-delete because it's just so intense. iRacing gets into these kinds of things. iRacing is also like a $14 a month commitment. This isn't. And if you're willing to put in $14 a month for a racing simulator, you're probably pretty well versed in this thing, and this just is so intense. I understand what all this stuff is doing. This is for the MGU, obviously, in terms of how it's going to be harvesting and deploying. Because we're probably dealing with alternating current on this car. It's talking about the harvest in terms of its rate, in terms of hertz, cycles per second. I get that. That's going to be what Max Verstappen on the radio talks about clipping. When a car is clipping, that means that it's harvesting at the top end. He's at speed, and the MGU is cut out, and it's harvesting, and then it's deploying again, and then it's harvesting again, and it's trying to strike a balance between taking energy off of the momentum of the car and then giving that energy back through the drivetrain. And this is probably the rate at which that's going to happen in various engine modes, of course. But, yeah, it's just a bit much for Assetto Corsa, and I'm all for pushing boundaries here, but it's rough. Beyond that, you've got this kettle of fish, which is a separate app, I suppose you want to call it, that comes with this car that goes into deployment strats, brake shapes, plank wear, right? So the legality plank used to be made of wood. Now it's a composite material that's got, I think, sawdust in it. But the legality plank on the bottom of a current spec Formula One car, you're allowed 1 millimeter of wear, and then you get thrown out of the event. Yeah, you can track that here down to the 10, 100, 1,000, 10, down to the 100,000th decimal place. You can track the plank wear. I mean, cool. First of all, what's it actually tracking? I'd be very curious of that. Is this just a scripted thing, or is this actually tracking how many times the car bottoms and with how much negative G is then induced into the car when it's going down in heave, and then when it contacts the track, how much positive G is induced in the car when it rebounds? I don't know if it's tracking all of that or if it's just a scripted thing, but cool, fine. And then all sorts of tones in terms of when the DRS is available, when you should be shifting. If you don't know when you should be shifting, then you shouldn't be driving a car. I'm sorry, but you can change the color values for the shift lights on the steering wheels. You can change the way that it looks, sequential block, and then block. I kind of like the block patterns, quite honestly, but whatever. Yeah, and then there's a manual in terms of what you do when you start the car, deployment strats, mapping them. You got to map buttons to your steering wheel. First of all, you have to have a very high-end steering wheel just to be able to get the most out of this car, which is intense, quite honestly. I'm using a Thrustmaster TSPC I have for many years now. I have the Ferrari 2020 rim on it right now, which is appropriate for this car because I've got like 40 different buttons and switches on this wheel, and you need every last one of them to use this car to its full potential. I haven't mapped everything to this car because it's not going to be one that I drive much, so I've got the strat mode mapped, and that's about it. But yeah. And then, of course, your VRC stuff. There's just a lot here, and I don't know what to do with it. And it's too much. That's my first instinct. It's just too much. But what's it like to drive? We're going to find out here. Default setup, C3 tires. One thing we are going to do, we're going to scroll for 997 years and then finally get into the visual settings here. We're going to go to which steering wheel? We want the Red Bull clone steering wheel to fit this Red Bull car, and we indeed have that here. All right. So back to the fuel screen, which takes entirely too long to get to. There we go. 50 liters. Default setup on the C3 tires. Makes sense. Let's go in. Got some bindings here. Okay. I want to get rid of the clock. And I want to get rid of the gears. There we go. Put the pedals there. Now you'll notice that the steering wheel is still not in the correct position. The driver's just holding it out in space, and his biceps are probably burning by now because he's been sitting here for the better part of 9 minutes. When you turn the ignition on with your extra buttons here, I've got this mapped to the 2 buttons on the actual wheelbase on my Thrustmaster TSPC. I hit my right side button, then that happens, the ignition comes on, and then the wheel gets put into position by the driver. Okay, Lewis script, cutesy thing, not too bad. Beyond that, now the car is switched on. I've got a screen on. I know that there are various pages that you can get to. I don't have any buttons mapped to that because it's just too much. But we can switch the engine on. Do that. Engine's on. Don't see anything different on this page. And let's just drive the thing because I've got no idea really what I'm looking for or what I'm trying to prove other than it's not all that meets the eye. Clutch in. These Lights come on when you reach full clutch engagement. First gear. Raise the revs. Bring the clutch out very slowly. You will trigger anti-stall if you get that wrong. Out of the pit lane. You no longer have the very annoying gear learning period here in FA24 as you had in FA23. Perhaps that's a concession to realism, but yeah, it's better that way. Should say that we didn't have the tire warmers on in the pits, so the tires are stone cold. Lots of bottoming there. Probably wearing that leg. Again, I have no idea how that specific parameter works. DRS open, one DRS zone along this lap. A little bit of low-speed oversteer there, right at the apex of the corner. That's pretty weird. Dropping it off the circuit. That's my fault there. Trying to steal track that wasn't there. That was my fault as well, trying to steal track that wasn't there. Anti-stall triggered there, you can see. That was a 129.73. This lap obviously will be better. Very nearly full lock and barely getting around that corner. Steering ratio needs some attention here. .114.18, getting there. But more importantly, getting heat in the tires and the brakes. low speed, basically full lock. Alright, better that time. $13.82. All right, so sufficient heat in the tires and brakes now. You can see the braking performance is just immense. However, I feel zero weight transfer. I mean, zero. I slammed those brakes down to 100% at the top of the braking zone, and the only thing that tells me that I'm slowing down is my eyes. And of course the revs are dropping as the car slows down, and the downshifts flicking that paddle as quick as I possibly can. Effectively instantaneous, of course, but I've got no feedback whatsoever from the car other than watching the horizon that the speed is dropping. Not a prayer blocking a wheel, I'll tell you that much. $112.61. Even here at very high speed, minimal force feedback. You can see the trace there in the lower left. Not much. Got a little bit greedy on a curve there. Big high-speed oversteer moment. Corrected it, thankfully. That's some oversteer under braking. Again, I can't feel the weight transfer. The car just breaks free sometimes, and it's bizarre. $112.9 or 8. Take it. All this bottoming, I don't really feel that for the steering. I hear it though. Brakes are absolutely immense. But I mean, you would absolutely expect that. Seeing some divergent motion across the front axle. Just saw as we were heading into the slow right-hander there. The right front wheel was kind of oscillating laterally across the axis of the front axle, and that was a little weird. Strat 1, which I believe is full beans. A little bit of oversteer again, mid-corner. Full throttle in second gear, not a hint of wheel spin. How much traction does this thing have? Boy, apparently a hell of a lot. Except right there, which is kind of strange. I have no idea what my charge or discharge rate is. Have blue lights on the steering wheel sometimes. I don't know what that actually means. Yeah, there they are again. What does that mean, the blue lights on a steering wheel? You know what would help? Another graph on the side of the display. I got a blue vertical line along the left side. I have no idea what that means either. I think it's overall state of charge, but that's just my own intuition. There again momentarily. What does that mean? I don't know. That blue line is going down. So I think it's overall state of charge. Either that or a per lap allotment, but it doesn't seem to be decreasing fast enough to be that. Probably overall state of charge because it's just entirely replenished for the most part. Yet if I want to deploy it manually, I can't. At least not with the control bindings that you have for every other car in Assetto Corsa. So that's kind of annoying. I think those blue lights mean that we're deploying the hybrid power, if I had to guess. But again, I don't know, I'm just guessing. And why we're not deploying then with DRS open is beyond me. See some textures changing on the tires as they wear in, obviously, to be expected. They don't seem original. Those blue lights come on again. They come in places that don't make sense necessarily if that means deployment. So what it's actually trying to tell me, I don't know. Does it really matter? Doesn't. Not really. We must be deploying down a straight though, because as we're in Sector 2 with the twistier stuff, that bar replenishes, so it's got to have something to do with the straight line speed. It's got to. All I can say though is obviously I'm getting into a position where it feels stable enough. We had a bit of an off on the first or second lap that we were doing, but now everything is very stable. I can do this for however long I need to and get reasonably consistent lap times. The amount of information, though, that I'm not getting through the steering is pretty incredible. Like I said, weight transfer, it's a phantom phenomenon in this car. I don't know when the nose is heavy or when the rear is light. The first indication that I have of an oversteer situation is visual. I do not feel it through my force feedback, which I don't change from car to car, which means that I get consistent feedback pretty much no matter what I'm driving, but not through this. See? Where'd that come from? No idea where that came from. I turned in just as aggressively as I would on any other lap, and the rear end just broke free. Shut the car down there. That's one good thing that a Lewis script does. You're able to shut the engine down whenever you want to, which is actually kind of nice. I like that. I can definitely appreciate that. Any visual damage modeled here? Actually, yeah. We're missing an end plate. Okay, that's kind of cool. I'll concede that point. We're missing an end plate. But, yeah. I mean, it's consistent enough. Obviously, once we morph back into the pits, that goes away. And the damage is repaired. Let's see, with the strat modes here. They're not telling you what mode does what. Maybe it does in the manual. There are 3 modes to distinguish. Cyan, when the energy store powers the MGU to deliver 120 kilowatts. Red. And white. Okay, so I'm guessing those blue lights that I was seeing was deployment. Okay. But it doesn't tell you deployment strat map, and it doesn't tell you what is strat 1 versus strat 8. What is it? Is strat 8 maximum power or minimum power? Or is it something in the middle where maybe strat 4 is maximum power, or strat 1 is maximum power, but then strat 4 is like fuel save? And then 5 through 8 are for wet conditions, or maybe 7 is in a special attack mode, or 8 is safety car mode. What is that? Put it someplace. I can't tell what I'm doing. Starting the car, obviously, we did that without a problem. That wasn't an issue. Let's see. What's our plank wear doing? Okay, 0.01437 millimeters on the front. All right, so we're well under the 1 millimeter threshold, quite obviously. Again, is that something that is scripted, or is that actually taking into account how much the car is bottoming? I don't know. Differential and all that stuff. There's a lot of stuff there. You can set your pit lane speed limit. Just 2 conditions there. Constant speed limiter. This is a cruise control setting that you see the guys use in real life from time to time, which is another Lua extension mapping that you can give it. We're not using it right here, obviously. PU mode is mode 7. Race, Race Plus, PU, Recharge, Quali, Pre-start, Start. What does any of this stuff mean? Obviously, I know that there are button mappings and bindings that you can program into your wheel or your button box or your keyboard, because you're going to need 100-something buttons to use this thing properly. Engine brake map. Just give us a steps out of 10 or 11, like any other car. Overtake E-Boost Turbo. Obviously, turbo boost pressure. Just give us the boost pressure. Or give us, again, that turbo boost pressure percentage like any other car does. You have to relearn how to play Assetto Corsa to use this thing. Target lap time, 64 seconds. I mean, these are just display things that you'll see. They don't actually do anything. Steering ratio, we can change the steering rack. Okay, fair enough. Mode 5 E-Boost Turbo. What does this mean? I don't know what any of this means. What setting do I need to be in whichever sub-menu in order to make sure that I have the right boost setting for things? Like E-Boost Turbo. What does that mean? Can you tell me? Again, it doesn't appear to be in this spectacular manual that you've given us. I feel like I need to go back to school. Deployment strap. And then brake shape, which is all kinds of things. Brake migration. Ramps on the front and rear bias. The starting brake bias. The shape maps. In other words, how much brake force are you applying out of 100% corresponds to X bias from a 50-50 split. It's, again, these are things that exist in real F1 cars, but Assetto Corsa doesn't support them. Not natively. It's a lot. It's a whole lot of stuff, and these are presets. When did these presets apply? I don't know. Driver preset 1, driver preset 2. Are these the settings that populate when you get in the car? Does that happen when you get into the car when you launch a session? Does it happen when you get in the car after a pit stop? Does it reset every time you enter the pit lane? What does this do? I mean, there's just so much stuff here. Differential settings, like, okay, mid, high speed switch. Just get that as high as possible. Brake warming bias. When does this cut out? Like brake warming. What do you consider the brakes to be warm at? What temperature? Because 88% brake warming, is that 88% brake bias at the front? That would be catastrophic. When does that stop? Or when does that start? When does anything happen? Air kit, medium downforce, high downforce, or mid-high downforce, then high downforce. That's just basically a rear wing setting. Front wing flap angles. Left and right sides. There's visual deflection there. Fair dues, whatever. Strat 8. Is that max or min? Is Strat 1 max or min? Is Strat 4 max or min? I don't know. I have no idea how to reference any of these things. If we can set this up as best as I can divine how into a qualifying setup, what does it do? Let's try that, I guess. That steering wheel installation animation only happens in your first entrance into the car per session, I gather. Right. Anti-stall triggered for a normal sort of clutch release. Okay. Also, you get shiny tires if you care about that sort of thing. Now they're no longer shiny. Alright, so we were doing low to mid 112s in the previous configuration. See what this does. I'm in Strat 8 right now, so that clearly is lower speed than we were just getting, so I'm assuming 8 is the lowest power configuration. And then Phantom Oversteer coming up. Strat 1. See what this does. Tire pressures are still a little bit low, I recognize that. That was a 12.47. Comparable to what we were just doing. My arms are crossed in the hairpin, just so you know what the steering lock is like. I know that we adjusted it a little. That makes sense. .51. Okay. So we're quicker in this trip, as you would expect. I can only divine that Strat 1 is the most powerful deploy map. Go wide there, a little bit of oversteer. Hardly matters. Alright, so that blue light apparently means that it's commanding 120 kilowatts deployment from the MGU. Why would you be commanding deployment when I'm in the middle of a hairpin? That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. You should be commanding deployment now, but you're not. Again, commanding deployment now. Why? Why would you do that? I want deployment now. Not giving it to me. 11.2. Fastest lap of the session, I'm quite sure. Giving deployment now for like a second, and then nothing else. So apparently these automated deploy maps are crap. This one makes sense, but then it stops again before the DRS zone. Why? I'm sure that someplace buried in the 997,000 settings that this car has in the setup screen, you can adjust that. I don't know how, and I'm not particularly inclined to learn. Give me a competent car that handles well enough, uses the setup screen that's native to Assetto Corsa, perhaps with some tasteful modifications, but certainly not adding another 100% larger setup screen to what we are already accustomed to in this already 10-year-old game. I mean, holy crap. And just keep it intuitive. Keep it to a level where you can pick this thing up and feel reasonably good about, oh, well, I guess I'm getting the most that I can get out of it. Makes sense to me. But, I mean, the complexity of this, and I love a complex thing. I love the idea of having to learn about how something works, but, I mean, this is just... It's esoteric almost. It feels like it's too much. And, you know, it is the Red Bull RB20. How do I know that? Well, the information's out there if you're willing to take a look. But it's the Red Bull RB20 with a couple of flick-ups added to it. And I don't just mean that they've emulated the Red Bull RB20. It is the Red Bull RB20. So there's that. That must have been a hell of a licensing fee, right? Right? You know the meme. Mm-hmm. Have some hot laps, and then we'll see you.